These are the stages of the people of Israel when they went out from the land of Egypt by their companies under the leadership of Moses and Aaron. Moses wrote down their starting places, stage by command of the Lord, and these are their stages according to their starting places. They set out from Ramses in the first month on the 15th day of the month. On the day after Passover, the people of Israel went out triumphantly in the sight of all Egyptians, while the Egyptians were bearing all their firstborn, whom the Lord had struck down among them. And on their gods also the Lord executed judgments. So the people of Israel set out from Ramses and camped at Succoth. They set out from Succoth and camped at Etham, which was on the edge of the wilderness. And they set out from Etham and turned back to Pi-haroth, which is east of Baal-zephon, and they camped before Migdol. And they set out from before Hareth and passed through the midst of the sea into the wilderness, and they went on a 3 days' journey into the wilderness of Etham and camped at Marah. And they set out from Marah to Elim. At Elim there were 12 springs of water and 70 palms, and they camped there. And they set out from Elim and camped by the Red Sea. And they set out from the Red Sea and camped by the wilderness of Sin. And they set out from the wilderness of Sin and camped by Dophkah. And they set out from Dophkah and camped at Alush. And they set out from Alush and camped at Rephidim, where there was no water for the people to drink. And they set out from Rephidim and camped at the wilderness of Sinai. And they set out from the wilderness of Sinai and camped at Kibroth Hattava. And they set out from Kibroth Hattava and camped at Hazeroth. And they set out from Hazeroth and camped at Rithmah. And they set out from Rithmah and camped at Rimmon Perez. And they set out Rimmon Perez and camped at Libnah. They set out from Libnah and camped at Rissa. And they set out from Rissa and camped at Keheletha. And they set out from Keheletha and camped at Mount Shepher. And they set out from Mount Shepher and camped at Haradah. And they set out from Haradah and camped at Mekaloth. And they set out from Mekaloth and camped at Tahala. And they set out from Tahath and camped at Terah. And they set out from Terah and camped at Mithkah. And they set out from Mithkah and camped at Hashmanah. And they set out from Hashmanah and camped at Mazroth. And they set out from Mazrah and camped at Bene Jaakan. And they set out from Bene Jaakan and camped at Hor Hagadad. And they set out from Hor Hagadad and camped at Jotbatha. And they set out from Jothbatha and camped at Abranah. And they set out from Abranah and camped at Ezion-Geber. And they set out from Ezion-Geber and camped at the wilderness of Zin, that is Kadesh. And they set out from Kadesh and camped at Mount Hor, on the edge of the land of Edom. And Aaron the priest went up Mount Hor at the command of the Lord and died there in the 40th year after the people of Israel came out of the land of Egypt, on the first day of the 5th month. And Aaron was 123 years old when he died on Mount Hor. And the Canaanite, the king of Arad, who lived in the Negev in the land of Canaan, heard of the coming of the people of Israel. And they set out from Mount Hor and camped at Zalmunna. And they set out with Zalmunna and camped at Punan. And they set out from Punan and camped at Oboth. And they set out from Oboth and camped at Abiram in the territory of Moab. Then they set out from Iyam and camped at Dibon-Gad. And they set out from Dibon-Gad and camped at Almon-Diblathim. And they set out from Almon-Diblathim and camped at the mountains of Abiram before Nebo. And they set out from the mountains of Abiram and camped at the plains of Moab by the Jordan at Jericho. They camped by the Jordan from Beth Jeshimoth as far as Abel Shittim in the plains of Moab. And the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan at Jericho, saying, Speak to the people of Israel and say to them, When you pass over the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land before you, and destroy all their figured stones, and destroy all their metal images, and demolish all their high places. And you shall take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have given the land to you to possess it. You shall inherit the land by lot according to your clans. To a large tribe you shall give a large inheritance, and to a small tribe you shall give a small inheritance. Wherever the lot falls for anyone, that shall be his. According to the tribes of your fathers you shall inherit. But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land before you, then those of them whom you let remain shall be as barbs in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and they shall trouble you in the land where you dwell. And I will do to you as I brought them to do, as I thought to do to them. I will do to you as I thought to do to them.